Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order the May 17th, 2021 regular Board of Aldermen meeting. Would everyone please join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Kelly.
Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Tice.
Here.
Alderwoman Sims. Absent. Alderman Weggie.
Here.
Alderman Gould. Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Alderman Shelton.
Here.
7 of the 8 board members are present.
Great, thank you. We have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is item 3, announcements, appointments, proclamations, and recognitions. There are 3 listed, but we're only doing 2 because the first one we took care of on Friday. That was the retirement of Sergeant Hattie Carmen, but she is in attendance tonight. If anybody wants to tell her thank you for the service that she performed for the city. So the first one is going to be the recognition of Josh Bowersox to the rank of sergeant. I'm going to turn this over to the chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Josh, you want to come up, please? Scott, would you also stand, please? Real briefly, I know you have a busy agenda this evening. These promotions to first-line supervisors for our police department are vital for the success of our department and the protection of our city. So as we go forward tonight, we're very confident in the 2 people that we're sending to sergeant and corporal. The first one is Josh Bowersox. Angie is going to read a very brief bio for you.
Sergeant Josh Bowersox is 38 years old and began his career with Brentwood Police Department in 2006, following his graduation from the Eastern Missouri Police Academy. He is married with 2 children and holds a bachelor's degree in social sciences from Webster University. Sergeant Bowersox was chosen to be a field training officer and actually trained several of the officers currently serving on the Brentwood Police Department. In August of 2018, Sergeant Bowersox was promoted to corporal, where he showed exceptional initiative to learn and develop as a leader of this agency. Tonight, Sergeant Bowersox's wife, Megan, will pin on his badge.
Josh, will you introduce your family, please? The next promotion to the rank of corporal is Scott Worth. Scott, how many years in law enforcement do you have? 26. Go ahead, Angie.
Corporal Worth is 51 years old and is a 17-year veteran of the Brentwood Police Department. His son Chase works as an Overland police officer. Previous to his service in Brentwood, Corporal Worth served the citizens of Ferguson from 1994 to 2004. He is a 2004 graduate of the Eastern Missouri Police Academy. In August of 2020, Corporal Worth was chosen to act as the second-in-command on his squad, and he took that opportunity to shine as a skilled leader and mentor. Corporal Worth is a seasoned officer whose attention to detail and decades of experience will prove invaluable to his new role and to our organization. Tonight, Corporal Worth's girlfriend, Elizabeth, will pin on his badge. Congrats, Scott.
Thank you, sir.
And you will be given up to 3 minutes. All right. Great, thank you, everybody. Next on the agenda is item 7, Mayor and Alderman reports. Just a couple of things. Under my report, we do have some committee appointments that we need to make. And unfortunately, I didn't get these to the board before tonight, but there aren't that many. The one is, I'm going to leave what I'm going to call the 3 standing committees. That's everything except for the Sustainability Committee, as is, with the exception of Public Safety. Alderwoman Ebeline, when she left, that created a vacancy with Public Safety. And I've reached out to Alderwoman O'Neill and asked if she'd be willing to move from Ways and Means to the Public Safety, and she's agreed to do that. So that's my first nomination, and that is Alderwoman O'Neill to the Public Safety Committee. Can I get a motion to approve that nomination?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you, everybody. Which now creates a vacancy on the Ways and Means Committee. And when I won or became an alderman in 2016, I was put on the Ways and Means Committee. I found it invaluable. You learned the importance of budgeting, and more importantly, that we can't spend as elected officials as much as we want to. There is a limit. There is revenue. There's a cap on revenue, and that point was really driven home by serving on the Ways and Means Committee. So my philosophy has been, when we have new alder people, to put them on Ways and Means if we can, and which is the reason I reached out to Alderwoman O'Neill. So with that vacancy, I'm going to appoint Alderman Shelton to fill the vacancy at Ways and Means, on the Ways and Means Committee. Can I get a motion to that effect? Any discussion on that? Roll call, please. I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Motion carries. Thank you so much, everyone. And finally, I need to reappoint somebody to the Fire and Police Pension Board. I appointed Alderwoman Tice last year. Will you give me a look, Kelly? Is that not right? Okay, it looked like it expired in this, looked like, according to what I had, expires May 21st. May of 2021. So I'm going to simply reappoint Alderwoman Tice to the board. Can I get a motion to that effect? Great, thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, that appointment stands. And finally, as probably all of you are well aware, we had an incident this weekend at the Drury, a tragic incident with the murder of somebody on the parking lot in or around Drury. And it simply is a reminder to all of us that crime is here. And it's incumbent upon us to be ever vigilant. We always have to be aware of our surroundings. And it's unfortunate that something like that happened, but again, this isn't going away. So hopefully, if anybody reaches out to you, you'll handle it in the proper way. And so with that, I'm going to move on to Alderman Plufka.
Thank you.
And is your mic on?
Thought it was.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, I don't have any kind of a report. I did have a question. Doesn't need to be answered right now, but could it be answered during the time of the city administrator's report? And I just wanted to know, I know that some of the construction, Dan, has begun with regard to the solar lights, and I'm just curious as to why it's stalled. I didn't know. I tried to reach out, we can do it. I don't want to take up any more time, but that's a question I'd like to get answered either offline or at some point during tonight, if that's okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Alderwoman Tice.
No report.
Alderwoman Sims is gone. Alderman Weggie.
Yeah, a couple things. So first of all, happy Public Works Week. You know, this is a great opportunity to thank Dan and his team for everything they do for the city. And in recognition of that, they got a new trash truck last week. So for all the less than age 10 children in town and myself. We're very excited to see that. So I'm hoping to come down and get a chance to take a picture of it, just so you know. And then excited to see that the work has started on the Bridgeport, the white cut through. It looks great. I went over there to take a look at it, how, you know, they've leveled and put the forms out, and then the rubberized material will be going into that. I know our residents will be very grateful for that. And then Public Works meeting on Thursday, 6 p.m. Here. That's a reschedule due to my vacation. Next month, we'll get back on normal schedule.
Great,
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Gould. Thank you. Alderman Shelton
No report.
and Alderwoman O'Neill. Great, thank you. And I saved the best for last. Alderman Lockmuller.
Thank you, Your Honor. Public Safety Committee will meet virtually on Wednesday, May 26th at 5:30. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to item 8, the city administrative report. Only thing we have under there, unless, Bola, can you address the question by Alderman Plufka? Or Dan, can you address?
Yeah, the reason why we haven't completed those is we're missing the parts. So there's a wiring harness that goes between the luminaire, which is the top light, down that vertical post, and then into the control panel. So it looks like they shipped us too many batteries and 0 of the 7 harnesses. So once we get those, we should be able to just snap them together, plug it into the battery, and get it going.
Thank you very
So
much.
that's it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. So that now brings us to the Brentwood Bound update. Craig?
Good evening. Craig Schiller with Navigate Building Solutions. Just with the general update, so we've got a lot of items on the consent agenda. Most of them we spoke about last Monday at the work session, so hopefully we were able to answer a lot of questions. If we weren't, Ted Spade with SWT is here. If you thought of anything over the last week, he could help answer any specific playground questions. But just as a reminder, tonight what we're looking for is staff's recommending the Board of Aldermen's approval to release SWT to commence design on the $5 million playground. So the cost for this is $529,725. So this is $150,000 more for the design cost than the $3.5 million option. And to remind you all why, by releasing this design, it helps really figure out what we're going to do with Normless Park over the next 9 months. And that's really important because Jacobs and PDS is currently designing a soccer field. And so we want to get some direction from you all, whether that's soccer fields in or out, and a lot of that's tied into the playground. In addition, Eric with City of Brentwood and myself and other staff members will work to get other grant funding and work on private donations, and we can't do that without commencing design. So there's a lot of importance to starting design, and just as a reminder, because you commence on design doesn't mean you have to approve a $5 million playground. We have 9 months of design before we even go out to bid. And through those 9 months, like you've seen us do before, we're gonna go out for grant funds and look for private donations. So don't feel like you're approving a $5 million playground, you're approving the design of a $5 million playground. And after 9 months, if there aren't grants and private donations that are received, and if there are other risks that come reality, you all could pull back and decide to do something less, or maybe there's a way to phase it, maybe there's a way to pause and do the playground a little later. There's a lot of options. So I know that's a big decision to do a big playground. I just don't want you guys to think that you have to swallow that $5 million pill tonight. Really, we're just asking for SWT's design to be approved, which is $529,000, a lot less. The event lawn and comfort station building, there are a lot of questions about solar last week. I just want to let you know that staff and consultants are not trying to sell solar. This is something that the board asked us to look into. And I provide a lot of information in the report. So this report's being received from the electrical engineer and from the solar subcontractor that is not even hired to this project. They're offering this information strictly to help you guys make a decision. You guys have the ability to add this into design now, or you could add solar in 5 years from now, because the building's being set up for that. So again, this is not something you have to approve tonight. If you would like it to be part of this current curricular design, we do need you to approve it tonight because we're in design development, we're going to construction documents. But you can add solar 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You have that option. Again, it's not something that has to be done tonight. But I did try to provide some of the information based on some of the questions. I'm not going to read through every single line item. The bottom line is the electrical engineer recommends a 30 kilowatt system. That's why we priced it the way we did. The 30 kilowatt system produces about 122 kilowatt hours per day. Now it receives roughly 37,000 kilowatt hours annually. Going to the next page, the net costs after rebates and incentives would be about $71,000. You guys asked if we added more solar to the north side of the pavilion, how much more that would cost. It would cost an additional $26,000. That brings up the net cost of solar to $100,000. So 30 kilowatts, about $71,000, 50 kilowatts, about $100,000. The electrical engineer nor the solar company recommends doing that large of a solar array. And I can tell you this from my own personal experience, Ameren won't approve it. You have to justify how much solar you're going to put on a facility. And when it becomes so big of an array, more than what you can justify with that building, Ameren doesn't want that on their grid. So even if you guys did want to pay that amount, Ameren would not provide a permit for that. So no one recommends that, but I did want to provide that information because you all asked that last week. Lastly, you guys asked about Normless Parking. So we did talk with the design team. The design team confirmed that the parking lot does meet the Brentwood codes for dimensions, landscaping, ADA spots, IOWIS, so on and so forth. Also, the design team confirmed that there isn't a certain number of spots required for parks within the Brentwood code. So in essence, the parking lot does meet the code. We realize that if you all were to approve all these different aspects of the park, during peak times, there will be more demands than parking spots. And again, that's why the redevelopment has always had that big parking garage at the southwest corner, because having that abundance of general shared parking would be a benefit to the park. We've also talked about potentially parking with some of the neighboring commercial lots. So there's a lot of different avenues with how to gain more parking, but someone asked directly, hey, does the parking lot meet the code? We did confirm that with the design team. Also, I should have added that we confirmed that with Lisa to look at the codes herself, and she confirmed that as well. So those are some follow-up questions. Going to my typical Brentwood Bound update, starting with soft costs, the total spend since last week was $263,857.11, and that was on material testing, legal fees, flood mitigation and GRG connector, design and engineering, playground concept design, project management fees, and redevelopment consulting. And the next category is property acquisitions. The total spent was $10,051, and that was on property acquisition and deed fees. The contingency, I updated that to show the approval of the Phase 2 bid, just so you guys could see the updated contingency amount since the last time we talked and since we were able to really evaluate the bid for that. Going to the funding sources down below, the city received rent payment from their tenant at the Bowser House, along with Missouri American Water paid for an easement on Frederick Roofing's former property. So those were the two updates below. And that is it, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for Craig? Alderman Plufka.
To follow up on the parking issue, we also raised the topic of the fact that we've got an event lawn and we've got a space that's at least designed in one aspect for concerts and things like that, which certainly would exceed the available parking that's on site. Are we going to hear at some point what the city has planned for how to park those kinds of events off-site?
I think as a group, we ultimately need to strategize on that because we've talked about potential commercial parking agreements, and frankly, I think the city's reached out to one of the neighboring lots that has a big lot to the north. We've talked about the redevelopment having a garage. The city's looking at having a shared parking north of Manchester underneath the tunnel. So we don't have the solution yet, to be honest with you. We have a lot of ideas, And as a group, we just need to figure that out in the future.
Okay, I mean, that's gonna weigh, at least on my mind, as we decide how big this playground is gonna be and what we actually
Sure,
pay for, regardless
Sure.
of how we come about designing it.
understood.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Craig? Yeah, Alderman Gould.
I don't. Eric probably does. I can, yeah. I can tell you, I did look into O'Day Park. They've got roughly 90 spots, and they don't, most of the times they don't even use half of that. So that's kind of a good comparison because that's a very high demand park. So we've got roughly 76 spots in comparison. But it's those peak events that will ultimately be the problem. And I'll turn over to Eric to answer your direct question.
Tall people. As far as down Russell, there's probably close to 50, another 50 in the park itself. So we think about 100 is what we typically say. In addition, we have those 2 lots on Russell that we've used for parking during special events in the past, like Brentwood Days. So we have those 2 lots right off, I can't remember what streets they're off of, but the grass lots that we use. And that's another important point of that connector across, because we can have parking all the way down Russell and Brentwood Park, and that's literally probably a 5-minute walk on a new 10-foot wide sidewalk all the way to Normless Park. Exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Alderman Waggy.
Yeah, Craig, can I just clarify? So when you say peak event, that's not necessarily just people going to the playground. That would be playground plus some kind of, event lawn thing going on. It's kind of like
Correct.
the worst case scenario.
That's my
So
understanding,
it wouldn't
yeah.
be just the playground per se. It would be
Yeah.
kind of,
In talking with O'Fallon, I mean, yeah, that one parking lot that's by the playground, which is strictly for the playground, right? You just go there, the event side's on a different side. They aren't using that parking lot to its full extent on normal days. So, yeah, it would be like a big event. It would be a concert or something like that was held. Just a typical Monday, Tuesday afternoon would not see near that capacity.
okay. And then one more clarification. So when you show I believe you said that, I just want to make sure I understood it. So the contingency that you're showing here is 4.1 million. That includes the over budget estimate that we're going to be looking at later for the phase 2 construction, correct?
Correct.
So that's kind of like, if we approve that, that's where we are right now.
Yes.
Okay, thank
And I
you.
wanted to show that because I know you're making a lot of decisions tonight. So normally I don't do that, but if I were in your shoes, I would want to see where we're at if you approve that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Alderman Gould.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ability is the roof structure is being selected to allow solar. So if you didn't approve it tonight, that same roof structure will be there. So you could add it in the future. There would be no additional overages in the future. The only risk would be is if solar panels pricing went up from today. So that's a risk, but at the same time with the new administration and the push for sustainability and green energy, they could go down too. We don't know. There could be more subsidies right now for government agencies, or $6,250 in subsidies and rebates. It could be a lot more in the future. So There is risk, but there's also potential opportunity as well. The electric room's gonna be sized for it, the roof's gonna be sized for it, so there's no change in the design. It would ultimately just be hiring a solar company to put them on the roof, tie them into the electrical system. No. No.
Anyone else? Okay, great, thanks, Craig. That brings us to item 9, the consent agenda. We have 9 items under the agenda for tonight. Are there any questions about any of those items? Alderwoman Tice.
I'm wondering if we could remove item 9D from the consent agenda? $10 million item. I'd like to vote on it separately and have some discussion on it, especially since it didn't go through committee.
Oh, okay, sure. We will put that under, that will be under new business. We will make that item, I don't know if that'll be 11C, probably. Anything else? Yeah.
Probably to pull agreement with on-call planning and development services.
I clarified that with PGAV. Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions or changes to the consent agenda? Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as with the removal of item or resolution number 1289.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie,
Yes.
Alderman Gould, Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill, Alderman Shelton.
Yes.
Passes.
Great, thank you. That brings us down to item 10, old business. And I'm not sure how we're going to handle this. Is Craig going to handle this, or are we just? She did the nod to Craig or Eric. Craig or Eric or anybody who wants to get up here.
Actually, we have each item, let me get to it real quick. We have each item listed,
Okay,
so we can just
yeah, we can just take
it
them
in
one at
that
a
order.
time.
Right.
This is what we discussed at last Monday. But obviously, if you have any questions as we take each motion or recommendation, feel free to ask away. But the first is, as you can see on your board docs, it's under the, take up the issue of the solar panels on the event lawn or comfort station building. So there's 2 possibilities here. One is to authorize staff to direct Christner to proceed with the design and engineering to include solar panels on the event lawn building, or motion to authorize staff to direct Christner to remove the solar panels from the design and engineering of the event lawn comfort station building. So whoever wants to make a motion either way, fire away. Alderman Weggie.
All right, motion to include the 30 kilowatt system on the event building.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we've got a motion to go with the first one, and that is to authorize Christner to proceed with the design and engineering to include the solar panels on the event lawn building. Any discussion, and seconded by Alderwoman Tice. Any discussion on that? Alderman Weggie.
Yeah, I appreciate him putting together the return on investment and understanding the calculation. I mean, it seems pretty close to me. Honestly, it could go either way. The install costs seem high, but I also think you could, get into the depths of all these and challenge. But I think professionals did their assumption on the ROI, and 18 years is good. I think the benefit is this would be our first, community solar install right on a very prominent building. I think it would just send the message that we are committed to sustainability, and it just looks good. So I think it's worth doing it from that nature.
Okay. Anybody else? Is a voice vote good enough on this, or do we need a roll call?
Roll call.
Roll call. Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie,
Yes.
Alderman Gould, Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill, Alderman Shelton.
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you. Okay, the next up is the destination playground and soccer field. As you might remember, there were a couple of options, or a few options on this. But just looking at board docs, the first is, the two choices presented to the board is, the first is a motion to release SWT to commence design on the blank amount million playground option. Or motion to authorize staff to direct Jacobs Engineering to remove the soccer field from the Great Rivers Greenway Connector Project. And the reason I say or is because it depends on what you all want to do with the destination playground. You know, if you go with the $5 million one, then I think by necessity, the soccer field has to be removed. So I'm going to leave it up to you. Again, whoever wants to make the motion. So let's take the playground first. So the choices are the design cost for $5 million, or the $3.5 million, or the $2 million. Alderman Lockmuller.
Make the motion to recommend the design costs for the $5 million playground.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Alderman Lockmuller, second by Alderman Weggie, and that would be to release to SWT the amount of $529,725 to SWT to commence the design on the $5 million playground option. Any further discussion? Alderman Plufka.
Does that motion by necessity mean that motion 2 is to eliminate the soccer field? I mean,
I think it probably does, otherwise you end up
practical
somewhat,
matter, or is
it's like you have inconsistent verdicts, if not, I mean, I don't know, sure, you'd be kind of weird, you don't get rid of the soccer field, but you authorize that.
Assuming that that's the case,
You want to amend the motion to add?
no,
Okay.
no, that's fine. I
Okay.
had more of a question about, I had to leave early the discussion that we had with regard to the various playground options. I left sort of in the middle of this discussion, and without going into, you know, being completely redundant, am I right to assume that what I saw in the previous presentation, that it wasn't just that the differences were obviously the size and situation of the playground itself. But I guess what I'm asking about is, in one option I saw a line of parking on Brazil, and in another design I didn't see it. And I know that we don't have a design yet. These are just conceptual ideas. But in the discussion, was the inclusion of that line, was that more with the higher dollar recommendation, or was that more with the medium recommendation?
Right.
I just was
I
curious.
understand your question.
Okay.
I think,
My name is Ted Spade with SWT Design, and the really, I think one thing I want to clarify is the 3.5 and the 5 eliminates the soccer field, so for sure.
Right.
But the decision on what we do with parking along Brazil, I think that's something that we'd either study or eliminate altogether. I don't think that's a big defining character between the 5 million and the 3.5.
But was it an option that was available? I think I remember you saying right before I left that being able to push that playground to the east, I guess, sort of in that direction, would allow for that additional line of however many spots?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's incumbent upon us authorizing the design of one of the two more expensive options.
Right.
The 5 million. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. That was my.
okay, thank you. Alderman Tice, I think you had your hand up.
I did. I think being able to design such an elaborate playground, I know we're not committing to it now, but it is really exciting. And this would just be a gym in Brentwood, and I'm really excited about the design proposal that we're voting on now.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmuller.
I guess to you, Ted, I would just express, I've already heard a concern about that parking and about the playground being so close to residential areas. So that it's already out there, that people have concerns about that. So by eliminating the soccer field, and we're going to talk about the dog park later on, and pulling that, as Alderman Plufka said, towards the east into that area that was a dog park, I think we can set up more of a buffer and sound buffer away from
gives me a lot of flexibility. So I think we'll study that whole buffer and whether parking or no parking. I think that gives us a lot of flexibility to slide it to the east and take on those concerns. We just haven't had this opportunity yet to have the kind of dialogue that we're having now. So we'll definitely take that in consideration.
Okay, anybody else? Great. So with that, let's take the vote on the motion to release $529,725,000 to SWT to commence the design on the $5 million playground option. Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And just for housekeeping, should we go ahead and take the motion to remove the soccer field?
Yes, please.
Okay, can we get a motion to authorize staff to direct Jacobs to remove the soccer field from the Great Rivers Greenway Connector Project?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? Alderman Gould.
Because I don't want it to be removed altogether. Removing it from Rivers Greenway project, yes.
We addressed that in board docs, but Eric can speak to that. He has plans on, because I think this is a little bit more involved because it would also require an amendment to the Parks Master Plan. No?
Depends on what we do.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if I mentioned I played soccer in college. I love the sport. So yeah, I've been thinking about what I can do with the soccer field and where to play it. And again, most municipalities utilize both their infield and the outfield for soccer fields. So we have the ability to do that in Normwest or in Brentwood Park. We haven't needed to do that. We did allow the high school, the boys team one season to use the outfield because we were redoing Normwest Park. So it's something we have done in the past. I would also look at expanding Field 4, and again, I think this does kind of maybe start the conversation again with the with Mount Calvary if we're interested in that.
We'll be bringing that to Public Works Committee. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Right.
All right, any further questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Carries.
Great, thank you. That brings us to the dog park. And the recommendation from staff is to eliminate the dog park from the Normwest Park Master Plan design. Can we get a motion to that effect?
Second.
All right, got a motion and seconded by Alderman Lockmiller. Any further discussion? Alderman Waggy.
I'll just reiterate what I said at the workshop. I mean, I'm at the dog park like 5 times a week. So, the only complaint I hear from people is that there aren't enough dogs there. And I think we have enough dog capacity in the Hanley Industrial Court. I like how we're making it better every year, kind of just a little bit here and there. And once the Clayton people go back to Clayton, there are going to be even fewer dogs. So I think we have more than enough dog park with what we have right now. And just as this has matured, it makes less and less sense to me to have a dog park, barking at all the GRG riders going by, and we're going to have an event and there's going to be a bunch of dogs. So it just doesn't seem to fit into this park anymore. So fully support pulling this out of the design.
Great, thank you. Alderman Lockmiller. Is your mic on? I'm sorry.
Renaming the area, if it has a certain function, single function, and not a dog park, a soccer field, a destination park, I think it's easier to find a naming for it. I yield to Jeff Gold on that. He's the expert on branding. But so I think, the fact that we'd have something that would have a soccer field, somebody playing soccer, dogs, as Brandon had said, it's just too many uses. I think we need to narrow the focus of the park.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, let's take a vote on this motion to eliminate the dog park. Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And that brings us to the last item under old business, and that is the motion is, can we get a motion to direct staff to begin the development of a plan that would facilitate the renaming of Normless Park and to bring their recommendation to the Public Works Committee and present their plan and findings to the Board of Aldermen no later than October 4th. Okay, got a motion by Alderman Gould, second by Alderwoman O'Neill. Do we have any discussion on this? Any questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould? Yes. Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Yes. Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. All right, that's it on old business. Brings us to new business, and we have 3 items. The first is the Heights Cooperative Payment. I'm assuming Eric is going to make the presentation on that.
Having a rough night here. Thank you. So we brought this to the Board of Aldermen tonight. Typically, we take this kind of an informational to the Public Works Committee, but since Public Works has moved back a week, the Heights is at the end of their fiscal year, and they'd like to get paid. So the information is, the basic is we pay 2/3 the difference between the resident and non-resident rate. You've seen kind of the usage drop and kind of up and down. But last year in 2020, it was $35,000. This year, due to COVID and the fact that the Heights was closed, it was the bill's going to be $26,782. So it's about a $9,000 decrease from last year. So beyond that, we did our typical look. And I think that was in the board docs. We get the rec track report, and then I physically take that and put it into a spreadsheet so we can do things such as check multiple names, addresses, things like that. And if you look on that, anything that was in orange was stuff that we had caught and sent back over. There's a couple blue where they responded that, it was actually wrong, and then I was able to reconfirm it. So we've gone through this process since March. So it takes us a while because we want to make sure we get it right for you guys.
Okay, great. Do we have any questions? Alderman Plufka.
Maybe I'm just confused. The listing here for 2020 is $35,702, then you mentioned a $26,000 figure. That's fiscal year 2021. Is that because fiscal year ends in May or something? Or
Their fiscal year ends June 30th.
okay, so the $26,000 is what we're voting on paying them?
Not the 35,702, that's just
That's
the-
already been paid to them?
Yeah, that was last year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Alderman Weggie.
So this is not reimbursement for 2020. This is for.
This is 2020, the payment for
the balance of
2021,
2020.
reimbursement for 2020.
So this would be any membership that was active in 2020 on January 1st, 2020 or something?
Any point during the time of 2020. So for a yearly membership, we pay that fee. For a monthly, we actually pay the amount of months that a monthly EFT person pays.
So is this on top of that 35,000 then?
No, 35,000 was our 2019 usage.
Oh, okay.
Why does it say 2020?
'Cause, that's just the year we paid it in. So I apologize for the confusion, but
But if their fiscal year ends in the middle of the year, isn't his point that we're talking about membership in the last half of 2020, not all of 2020?
no, what we're paying for, so that 26,000 is all memberships from January 1, 2020 to December 31st, 2020.
Okay, and we're paying them at the end of their fiscal year.
Their fiscal year, it goes back to a couple things. It goes back to when the agreement was first signed by the city in Richmond Heights. And then also, at that time, we based it on the calendar year, not their fiscal year. So the payments for the calendar year, even though their fiscal year is different.
But they collected on the anniversary of their fiscal year.
on year end. So it really depends on when they submit the invoice payment and how long it takes us to audit it. That determines when we pay it.
So the $26,000, which is not listed on here,
Right.
pays us through the end of calendar year 2020.
Correct.
And we're paying them in
Eric.
June of 2021 for a fiscal year that ends June of 2021.
Well, we're paying per calendar year, not for their fiscal year. They
But
just
we're
want,
paying it on their fiscal year. You just said you wanted
they
to.
would like to get paid for their fiscal year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Tice.
Could I ask a clarification question? Because you had mentioned this 26,000 number, but the memo actually says $23,375 because of some errors that you found in the original invoice. So I just want to clarify what we're actually paying them.
I am sorry, you're correct. It is $23,375.
Okay, great. And then my other question is about when you do the audit. I noticed a few people who have moved out of Brentwood, but not in 2020, but have since moved out of Brentwood. Do you do occupancy? I mean, how do you
Yeah,
check
every
that? Because
year-
I noticed 3 or 4 just that I knew in my ward who were on there, but should not be the next time we do this.
Yeah, I'll be honest, that we, if it's people that are year after year after year, we kind of take a look at that, but we also I get the occupancy permits for everyone from the planning development department, and I actually notate if they've moved out in the calendar year. So I have notes that for certain people, like, should not be on the bill next year. So I can remind myself for next year.
Okay, great.
The auditing process is so cumbersome that we will be bringing to the Public Works Committee a proposal to change how our residents would show that they're residents of Brentwood going forward, because we just spend an inordinate amount of time auditing this and then going back and forth, and then they having to provide documentation and then arguing over that. So it might be an inconvenience for our residents to have to come to City Hall and show proof. That's what we're going to be recommending, and we're open to, dialogue to see what you all ultimately would like us to do. But it's just taking a lot of time to audit this, and we've audited it my entire time here, and it's not getting any better.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, can we get a motion to approve the payment of $23,375 to the city of Richmond Heights?
So moved.
All right, we had a motion by Alderwoman Tice, seconded by Alderman Waggy. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Waggy?
Yes.
Alderman Gould? Yes. Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. That brings us to item number 11B, bill number 6326. And on this, we're asking for can we get a first reading of bill 6326 by title only, please? Mr. City Attorney.
Bill number 6326, first reading, an ordinance approving utility easements with the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District for sewer facility relocations for the Brentwood Bound Improvements Project.
Thank you. Who's presenting this? Is Craig presenting this, or is Dan?
This is pretty straightforward. We did this for Missouri American. This is actually for MSD. It's for sewer relocations associated with the Brentwood Bound improvements. There's 6 different addresses: the 2820 Breckenridge Industrial, 2714, 2717 Breckenridge Industrial, 8002, 8000 Manchester Road, and then 8130 Brentwood Industrial. We worked with Jacobs. They worked through the process with MSD to come up with locations, and MSD came up with the exhibits. So this is just to approve the locations that they'll move their sewer mains. And it's no cost to us. It's just that we need an ordinance to proceed.
Have any questions on that? Are we wanting a second read on this tonight also? Sure, okay. We would like to have a second read on this bill, if at all possible, tonight. So
moved.
Yeah, we got a motion by Alderman Waggy, seconded by Alderman Lockmuller for a second read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, can we get a second read of Bill 6326 by title only, please?
Bill number 6326, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance approving utility easements with Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District for sewer facility relocations for the Brentwood Bound Improvements Project.
Great, thank you. Can we get a motion to perfect Bill 6326 in ordinance form?
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Waggy?
Yep.
Alderman Gould? Yes. Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Or actually, the ordinance. Bill number 6326 will become ordinance 4964.
Great, thank you. Next up is Resolution 1289. This is a resolution approving an agreement between the City of Brentwood, Missouri, and L. Keeley Construction to perform construction services for Brentwood-bound Deer Creek Flood Mitigation Phase 2. With that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Alderwoman Tice.
Thank you. I have some questions, I guess, for Craig. So my first question is alternate 6, the adding $424,297 for, I read it as like a retaining wall for a building that we bought to potentially move Public Works to. Did I miss that we were going to have to pay $400,000 for a retaining wall? Like, were we told that before and I don't remember, or is this new?
You were always going to need to have that wall, whether you bought the building or not. The only reason why we did that as an additional alternate was that was something that throughout design, you know, with the nature of the way that it was, the creek was done, that was something that evolved throughout design, one. And then two, there was a chance that you guys would buy it and maybe not want to move Public Works and demolish a building, like you've done a lot of other buildings. So we wanted to ultimately just know what that cost was, just so we all knew what that was. And there's no better way to determine the costs than to have bid day results of it. So that's why. It was really just a kind of a check.
So-
But whether you had the building or not, you were always going to need that wall. Otherwise, that building couldn't remain there.
So is this just a bid alternate and we're not committed to this until we have the discussion about the building, which we haven't had? I mean,
so-
we've sort of had the discussion. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
we haven't really, I mean,
Yeah, the bid alternate, I mean, so it's currently in the recommended sum that's in Al Keeley's scope of work. But like I said, even if you didn't buy the building, that wall would have to be there. Otherwise, the nature of the design would have undermined that building. So you buying the building didn't change it. I don't think you'd want to demolish that building, you know, by the nature of the value of it. But if you all decided to, that's the only reason why you wouldn't want to have that wall there.
okay, just, I guess I probably would have liked to have known that when we bought the building, there was also an additional 420, or, you know, like, I guess you didn't know the cost, but
Yeah.
I didn't factor that
But
into
if you
thinking
didn't-
about that building when we bought it.
If you didn't buy the building, that wall would still be there. Buying the building didn't change that. Like, if you didn't buy the building, you especially would have needed that wall to protect the owner having that building with the design of the Brentwood bound improvements.
And then I have another question about the different bids, and so MSD is reimbursing us for their portion of the cost.
Correct.
So when you looked at the bids, the Castle bid, the portion that was the MSD portion was much more expensive than the portion for Brentwood. So how did the recommendation of L. Keeley come to play? Because it's definitely costing the city more, even though the overall bid is less.
Sure, great question. So we see variability in prices, even when you go to the third bidder, who is the highest, they actually were the lowest on MSD. So the prices are up and down on the Brentwood piece and the MSD piece. Ultimately, the selection committee had to look at the overall bid price, because the overall bid price was Brentwood's and MSD's in aggregate, the total of it. And through the review of their bid and through the interview process, L. Keeley was the most responsive qualified bidder. So we had to look at everything holistically. You're absolutely right. Castle, while they're higher in the overall aggregate, it was a benefit to Brentwood because they're not as much over, and they're a lot more over on MSD, but MSD's paying for their piece. So you're not wrong in that assessment. The selection committee has to look at everything as one total number, and that's the way we looked at it.
It's a big number. It's a big difference that
You're
we're
right.
paying. I mean,
You're right. You're absolutely right. And we had those same discussions. You're absolutely right.
maybe others have questions.
Sure.
Okay, unless we have any other questions, can we get a motion to approve Resolution 1289?
So moved.
Get a second?
Second.
Okay. Got a motion by Alderman Waggy, seconded by Alderman Lockmuller. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
No.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould? Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Motion carries. 1.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. That brings us, that's the end of new business, according to my agenda. That brings us to item 12, citizen comments. Again, if anybody in the public cares to address the board, now's the time to do so. You will be given up to 3 minutes. Assuming, Kelly, we don't have anybody online that wants to say anything?
We do not.
Okay, great. Yeah, okay. All right, great. So with that, let's move on to item 13. We do need to go, a couple of matters to handle in closed session, executive session. Can we get a motion to go into closed session pursuant to RS Most 610.021 subsections 1 and 2 and adjourn therefrom?
Second.
All right. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderman Gould? Yes. Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Alderman Shelton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Move to closed session.